Hello, everybody. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are on the globe. My name is Sroda Aglago. Thank you for joining me on Love, Forgive, Live podcast. Once again, today is Happy Valentine's Day. I know it may seem late to some of you, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you for being friends, family, and loved ones. I appreciate every single one of you, and those of you who are loyal supporters that keep coming to listen every time. Thank you, and I appreciate you being available and open to enjoying the little bit that I share with everybody. And of course, sometimes it's my own story or stories of what I've learned from others. And of course, bringing information about therapy, life, love, and forgiveness. So that's my take. Today's topic is very important to me because I think being in a professional in terms of mental health profession, I recognize as I hear a lot of people are frustrated, like, they've tried therapy and some people come to me and say it doesn't work. I believe therapy works. I wouldn't do it if I didn't believe that. However, I think it stems from knowing what you're looking for, what you're hoping to gain out of therapy in order to be able to get fulfillment or get results from therapy. One thing that I find important before deciding to go to therapy is this. Decide on what kind of modality you want or your personality fits. Some people are very, very well educated in terms of educating themselves about what type of modalities are out there or techniques or type of therapies out there. There's a whole slew. I'm telling you, under the alphabets from A to Z, there's a type of therapy. So it's a whole long list of them. And it's not just one, two per letters. It could be, we could have about 26 or 30 or more therapies, types of therapy. So I think you need to learn which one resonates with your own personality before you even jump into it. And of course, it is not wrong for you to ask questions of a therapist. Hey, what kind of modality do you use, or what modality do you feel comfortable using in your practice? I think it's fair. Because if a client is walking into a place to get help, they want to know what modality the person uses. Of course, if the modality the person uses is not one that resonates with you, of course, you can always opt to go to a different person or ask a therapist to refer you to another person. I don't think that hurts anything. Rather, it's ethical for the person to suggest someone for you if they can't provide what you need. I used to have people ask me, strictly behavioral therapy, and I was like, I don't do strictly behavioral therapy. So yeah, I usually refer them out to someone who does that. I'm much more comfortable dealing with cognitive behavioral therapy sometimes, depending on what the person needs, but just doing behavioral therapy, that's a whole new ballgame that I don't feel is part of my scope of expertise. And I'm not ashamed to say so, because if I know there's something that is beyond me, I will be glad to let the person know so that they get the treatment or services that they do need. So that is my take on it. Now, before you go into therapy, you always have to understand the therapist is not there to solve a problem for you. Rather, you are going there for the therapist to facilitate your need, facilitate your growth, facilitate where you're going and what you want to do and where things are going to look like. So, me in particular, when I have a client, I usually tell them, I am not an expert. Rather, you are an expert on your life, and you're just inviting me to join your process in order for you to navigate what is happening to you. When that happens, clients find it refreshing. So far, I think it's been very helpful for me to be honest with clients like that, because I'm not one to be overbearing with clients. So I allow them to feel empowered, that they have some sort of control over the issue, because I think that stems from me liking a person-centered type of therapy, because that helps me get into the person's process and recognize where the dysfunction or the problem or the situation is coming from. It's, of course, very important for clients to be aware of what they need. And of course, I always say sometimes clients may ask you, the therapist, that what modality you're working with. It is not rude. It's perfectly professional for a client to ask a therapist that. So with that in mind, I'm going to talk about the type of modalities that I use that I find very effective. Sometimes I might switch it up to use strategic. I will not talk about strategic therapy, I'm just mentioning it, but I rarely use strategic therapy. But feel free to go and read up on these type of modalities that I'll share with you. You can read up on it, get more information, and then become familiar with it. And of course, go through the list of modalities that are out there, or type of therapies that are out there, and find which one works for you before you venture out going to therapy. I think that would help people a lot more than just going in blindly without knowing what they need or what they're going to be going to adhere to, and then spend 6 months to a year and realize that they're just going there to vent and they haven't found any way to start the therapy itself. So I think it's important. Once you know, you're much more able to feel empowered going into therapy. Now, you don't have to know who the clients may be before they walk into the class, into the session with you, but it's always good to be prepared, and then nonetheless, and understand that a client may come with questions, and find what fits with them. And if it doesn't fit, then it's fine. It's okay. It's no loss, because you will gain the right person that fits your modality. And of course, the person will get what they need. The most important thing is this: you want a client to feel like they're getting the treatment they need and are feeling confident that they will get what they need to heal or grow from, or get understanding from in session. With that in mind, I will discuss 3 modalities. The first one is solution-focused brief therapy. The second one is narrative therapy. Narrative therapy is a really good one too. And then of course the third one is the structural therapist, or structural therapy. And with this in mind, I will discuss who developed the therapy, and then how that benefits the clients in terms of goals or techniques that are used in these type of modalities. So I will talk about the solution-focused brief therapy. Solution-focused brief therapy does this. It has an emphasis on the individual's present and their future. It's only focused mainly on the individual's present and their future. The past does not matter in this case. Only deals with the present and the future, and that means the future goals or future circumstances and their present goal, because sometimes people set goals without even recognizing that they can achieve them. So I think it's this is where the therapist comes in and facilitates how they can maintain that goal or achieve it, and in drawing almost like a roadmap for the person to gauge how they're going to go about this steps to get what they need. And of course, it's not something that we discourage clients from doing. Okay? The other thing is this. These individuals who use solution-focused brief therapy, their symptoms or issues that brought them to therapy, those issues are usually not the most important thing that the therapist focus on. Rather, the sessions are directed towards goal, goal, goal. I remember having a client, and I inherited this client from another therapist due to some medical issues. So the client was referred to me. And I remember at the end of the treatment for almost 6 weeks, and the person had, the regular therapist had returned. And when the person returned and they asked this client, hey, do you want to stay with this therapist, or you want to go back to the one you had before? And to my surprise, the client said no, they preferred to stay with me because they recognized that there was a goal for them to work towards. It wasn't just talking about their issue and the stressors that are in their life and then going and venting, but rather there was some sort of a goal, a system set in place where they had to follow, and they could see where this was going. Then I recognized, I am definitely a solution focused kind of person. I recognized that when I was in school. And my residency professor had asked us we should find a modality that we are well versed in and find easy to call on. Even if we are sleeping and then somebody wakes us up in the middle of the night, are we going to be able to recall what to do and then respond right away? That was a very key thing for me because it allowed me to recognize what needed to be done. And so I took time to learn more and more about it. And the more I learned about it, I recognized something very powerful, actually. I recognized that this was the way I live my life. I focus on solutions. And it was important for me to recognize this because it made me feel like, yes, I have chosen the right modality. So this is like my all-time favorite. I do fall on this quite a bit in many cases, and I never get tired of solution-focused brief therapy. Now, this type of therapy, the therapist usually does this based on their experience. They would encourage the client to work on their vision, the vision of what they want for their future, okay? What they would need in order to do that, in order to achieve or pursue their future goals or their success for themselves. The needs are as follows. 1, could be a coping skills for the client to deal with stressors or difficulties that comes at them. Number 2, resources like education, psychoeducation or education, ideas, and talents. Okay. Number 3, potential. The potential of the client is become one of the important things that the therapist can help the client develop and notice and see. Because a lot of the time, people who have potential, they don't even know. They don't know because they haven't taken the time to even think of it or believe it or even search and look within themselves and then come up with it. So this is important for a therapist to help a client. And usually there's seasoned therapist or the experienced therapist would recognize this and be able to bring the client's mind to this or attention to this. The techniques involved, first of all, before I go on to the techniques involved, solution-focused brief therapy was developed by Steve DeShazer and Insu Kim Berg. Okay, Insu Kim Berg. They developed this in the Brief Family Therapy Center in Milwaukee, actually, and together with their team members, they came up with or developed the solution-focused brief therapy. So that's very important to see how this was developed and what techniques that were being used or are still being used today. The techniques is this: the counselor asks specific questions that guides or encourages the sessions or the client during the session by facilitating them as to what the client's needs are. For example, coping questions, which is a way to highlight the client's inner strength to overcome difficulties or adversity. The second type of questioning is called the miracle question. The miracle question does this. This is on the techniques. The miracle question helps the client to at least slow down enough to imagine how different their life could be or could look like. This gives the client a chance to, at this point, go into the imagination or dream a little. See what is there that nobody can see. The third type of questioning is a scaling question. The scaling question is by far one of the best ways to gauge progress in the sessions or treatments. This helps the client track their progress. It also helps the client learn how far they've come and how far they still have to go. This is great because clients like to see results or where they're going. And if it's not working, then it's time to use something else or do something else. But rarely would you see a therapist start with one modality and then change and do another type of modality. It usually doesn't happen often. Now, the second type of therapy or modality is narrative therapy. Narrative therapy is a type of therapy that differentiates a person from their problem. There it is. Differentiate the individual from the problem, because the problem is not the individual. It is what it is. All right? That is, the therapist encourages the individual to rely on their own skills to decrease their problems which they are dealing with in their lives. Now, decreasing the problem can look in different ways. But the way I'm talking about is it's a matter of not allowing their own problems to override their needs and where they're going. Narrative therapy uses the client's own life experiences and stories. By giving their stories meaning meaning which help shapes their identity or who they are. Their story then are used by the client in order for them to discover or learn what their purpose is. Narrative therapy is amazing for that. The individuals that developed narrative therapy are Michael White and David Epson. You can go and read up on it, go to the library and look up more information and read up on this. And you can get a better understanding of what these therapeutic models or modalities are. This model was created as a way to empower and of course a collaborative approach to therapy by both individual and therapists. The techniques are this. 1. Believe that the clients tell their story as a positive step towards a change in their own life. That is, it includes the next 3 things that I'm going to mention. 1. Framing the problems within a larger social, cultural context. Meaning, how does this fit in the grand scheme of things based on what is happening to the client? How does that fit in? That's important. Number 2, by teaching or coaching an individual how to move how to make room for other stories. Because here's the thing. If you hold on to the stories of the past, there's no room for a new story. So it's important to learn how to create room for a new story, for a new idea, so that you can grow. Number 3, help or assist individual. The therapist must help or assist the individual to objectify their situation. That's the most important thing. Once you're able to objectify the situation, there's something wonderful that happens. You begin to feel a little more stronger and empowered. Another thing the therapist facilitates is this: the client's identity. The clients identify alternatives to their storyline. This is a huge thing. This role for the therapist is very important because this is where the client finds value and strength in their own story and the alternative story. My third modality that I said I would discuss is actually a family therapy, which is a structural therapy. Structural therapy is an interesting thing. It's an interesting one. It was developed by Salvador Minuchin. You can look it up. Go to any sites to read up on structural therapy, you find it. You can read, more on even library information, and if you can get library books nowadays because of COVID. However, the information is out there. You can find it and get access. Now, structural therapy, its goal is to disrupt or alter the family structure that has been put in place to maintain the system. This is important because that's what's going to make a difference for change to happen. In structural therapy, the family is important. It's very important. However, it's not as important as having an effective family system that works. That's the difference. The family is important at all costs, but there must be a system that works for the family to facilitate the family's growth. The way this is done is through the creation of effective hierarchy, so I said the first one is the effective hierarchy. The second one is the executive subsystems. One of the major problems that comes in view of in structural family therapy is when the family members or the system that they've built to maintain the dysfunction within the family refuse to change, when individuals refuse to change that system. That makes things a little sticky and difficult for both clients and therapists. Number 2 is the therapist does not change or make things different or solve the problem for the family. Rather, it's the family that solves the problem. The structural therapist is just a facilitator. That's what they do. So the family is the one that does the job to allow things to happen correctly and safely. It's not up to the client to solve problems for them. Number 3 is boundaries. Has to be set within the family. And those boundaries, they either have boundaries that are working or boundaries that are not working. The boundaries that are working are usually put in place for either by parent to child or child to parent. Then comes the rest of the house. But the problem is boundaries needs to be set, because if there's a boundary that exists already, it may be only favoring the C individual, meaning the child, and then the boundaries that are supposed to be open, available for the parent, are no longer available, because one may be doing well, the other will be not so well. Parent may be neglected, and child may have full and focused attention from the other parent, and that can create a lot of discomfort and discourse within the family system. So boundaries are very important, and to understand that boundaries must be reciprocal. You must work together to be what is supposed to be. Now, in an enmeshed family, like I was saying, one thing may be happening. Parent may not be adhering to a child's need, or what usually is seen is parent become more aligned with the child against the father, or father against the child. And this happens where the relationship becomes something that is not recognizable. When this happens, I think it lends a way for the family to begin to choose what is important to maintain the dysfunction. So structural therapy has a way of making families work together. But I've heard other colleagues say they don't like it because it forces people to do something they're not ready to handle. And someone told me it seems like structural therapy is more confrontational. So basically it comes in, its goal is come in, disrupt the system that has been working to maintain the dysfunction, and come up with more an effective system that will allow the families to operate together and cooperate with each other. I hope this was helpful for someone. To learn more about this, you can go online to read more on what solution-focused brief therapy is, narrative therapy, structural therapy. You can go and read up on it. These are my go-to, most favorite. I do have two other ones that I do use often, but it's not every client I use that for. It's only when the clients shows up that I feel, based on their personality and their thought process and how they navigate communication, I may choose something. Like I had one person that I recognized the person was very smart, and strategic therapy worked well with that person. And I was surprised because I was like, wow, I chose the right modality for this individual. I think once that's done, it's important to recognize the strength the person exhibits by walking into therapy in the first place. I tend to encourage and empower people that way, and of course I applaud them for taking the step to work towards a healthy individual and relationship that they formed with others. The other modality that I sometimes use is also the therapeutic art activity. That surprised me because sometimes by the time we are done doing the therapeutic art activity, you can see clearly where the problems lies with both the parent and child. And that's incredible. And of course, my very last one, which I'm not going to go into detail describing it, is My mind is going blank. I'm trying to remember this, but I will find it in a second. Oh, I get it. Role play. Oh my goodness. Role play therapy is amazing. When I use that with clients, family especially, I get very excited. And usually what happens in the individuals that may be having difficulty speaking due to fear or anxiety, I usually align with that person and empower them so that they can speak and engage more. All right. So these are a lot of modalities that I've shared with you. My question is, which one is your favorite and which one do you think resonates with you? Go ahead and read up on it more, learn about it before you go out there looking for therapists and not understanding what the therapist could offer you. And if they don't, what do you do? It's very important. This helps towards your own mental health and give you the ability to feel like you're equipped, you're holding on to something powerful. So when you work into a session, you're able to communicate with a therapist and they realize, wow, this person is more versed in what they need. Then the therapist will also stay on track to what your needs are. So I find it refreshing when people ask me that. I gladly tell them, oh yeah, I work with this, and then we take it from there. It's very hands-on and a lot more organized, I should say, if that's the word to use. I hope this was helpful to someone. You gave an insight into what their needs might be. So now when you're going out there to search for a therapist, they know what to look for, what to ask for, in order to be able to function as a person. Because things have come at them where they may be feeling lost. One thing I will share is this. Be patient with yourself when you go into therapy. Allow yourself to be explored with questions that will lead you to what you need and where you're going and how that will work for you. Those of you who want to learn more about this or want me to cover this particular topic again, you may be able to write to me at love, L-U-V, the number 4, give, G-I-V-E, live, L-I-V-E, at gmail.com. It's important. So if you let me know, then I also know what to look forward to and address your questions and your preferences. And if there's something you want me to cover, I may do so. You may do so, and then I will cover it to the best of my ability. If it's not part of my scope of expertise or my scope of work, I will not be able to answer it anyways. I can only deal with what I know. If I'm not, then I will not have anything to deal with. Okay? So let me know, write to me, ask questions. If there's something you want me to cover, I can cover it. Alright? Another thing is this. Like I was saying in the beginning, therapy does work. But it depends on the individual. on the work they did within themselves before they went into therapy. That helps determine how quick the sessions will go or not. It is what it is. I think once people become aware of this, it helps them lower their expectations drastically and give people a chance to make choices that empower them rather than draw from them. Okay? This week has been an interesting week. I hope the coming week will be more interesting. Either way, I've enjoyed communicating with you guys. I'll be doing a live stream on Facebook on this Tuesday at 8 p.m. It might cover this topic or it's the new topic. I don't know. I wait to be guided or directed towards what to speak about or what to cover in a podcast or in a Facebook live group. Those of you who follow us on Twitter, thank you. And those who haven't, please do join us on Facebook. And of course, those who are following Love, Forgive, Live on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe so that we can continue doing this and grow together. And of course, we're on Spotify. Another channel that has contacted us for our show is Verbal. It's interesting. So we are uploading information now. Definitely people know how to get to the site. And we're excited about getting more exposure on everything. Okay? Another thing is this. Those who listen on Spotify, thank you. And continue listening to us and hearing the word of encouragement and of course empowerment. Thank you. My name is Sroda Aglago. Thank you for joining me on Love, Forgive, Live podcast. I will talk to you guys again next week, next Sunday. I hope everybody enjoyed today's talk. Good night. Oh, yeah. Bye.